The year is 1991. Technically the start of the decade, if you want to be a nerd. And our first Bomberman game of the year is Bomberman Again. Except now it's as an arcade cabinet. Developed by Irem, this game was released in all three regions and renamed in North America and Europe again. Europe got Dynablaster, while North America got Atomic Punk. Our story can be understood as a sort of a retelling of the TG16 game, except we have King Bomber instead of Black Bomber. King Bomber, not Bomber King. And we also have a year in which the game takes place, 2091, exactly 100 years after this was released. Robot contests have become a popular sport, with Bomberman and King Bomber being the best robot team. Until one day, King Bomber attacks humanity because no explanation is given, and so it's up to Bomberman and Bomberman 2
the Squeakquel
to stop him and save the day. There's no world map for us this time. We jump right into the first stage and just sort of launch ourselves to the next stage each time we've beaten all the enemies. What's notable here is that a second player can join the fun, playing as Red Bomber, or Bomberman 2, I guess, making for a co-op game. And if you're playing the North American or European version, it actually goes up to 4 players. This game is quite a bit harder than the last one. Often you're spawned right in the middle of the action. Power-ups don't carry over between stages. If you beat a stage, you start the next one with nothing. Accordingly, we find lots of power-ups in every stage instead of just one, and in boss stages they're just lying around from the start. Deaths and game overs don't restart the stage, so if you have enough quarters you can just keep going until you've beaten it. Our death animations have us either tipping over or being covered in soot, depending on whether we were killed by a bomb. There are no new power-ups, and our remote control is actually not a heart here. What? How could they not make the remote control a heart? It does change what bombs look like though, giving them an antenna receiver. A first for the series. The enemies seem to be entirely new, and even include fire-breathing dragons and some evil bombers that can place their own bombs. But the highlight for me has got to be these guys who look kinda like the Game Boy Atomic Punk artwork. Hit them once and they lose their clothes, so then they run around covering themselves. It's kind of adorable. We switch between 2 music tracks, both of which seem to be original to this game. The bosses are sometimes vaguely inspired by the bosses from the TG16 game, but there are also a few unique ones like this star thing that bounces around the stage, and fart cloud? Our final boss is pretty much a copy of the last final boss fight. King Bomber has his 4 bomber minions, albeit with different colors, who can turn into flames and shoot fire, and then King himself will teleport around and shoot flames, while his force shield flickers on and off. At the end, peace is restored and King Bomber and his cronies have to clean up all the debris. The end. Our battle mode supposedly also goes up to 4 players, but the mode doesn't seem to be accessible from the European version here, so let's try it in the Japanese version where we only have 2 human players. The music for the selection screen is this. Here we see blue and yellow bombers are labeled as 3 and 4. It's pretty much what we'd expect from battle mode. The only new addition is computer-controlled opponents for the first time. Our lose screen is noticeable for saying OMG, and the draw screen has this girl here who only appears here and doesn't seem to have a name. Meanwhile, blue bomber is farting? If time is running out in either mode, our music speeds up until we get a game over or draw at the end. Also, tapping the movement input quickly lets us stand walk again. Overall, this game makes for an interesting graphical upgrade from the home console game, even if our story is a bit watered down and best considered a spin-off. The most noteworthy things from this game would be the very first co-op mode and the very first calm opponents for battle mode. But what's next? Will Europe ever decide if it's Dyna Blaster or Dynablaster? Will North America decide if they want to rename the franchise to Atomic Punk or not? I mean, geez, guys, make a decision and stick with it. Later in '91, we got Bomberman 2 for NES, released in all regions. As per usual, it was renamed Dynablaster in Europe, one word this time, and they left out the 2, so I guess there's some more potential for confusion here. Meanwhile, it retained its original title in North America. Last time, Black Bomber kidnapped a damsel and brought her to his castle. This time he makes a reference to Eric and the Floaters? No, he stole some money and frames White Bomber for it, who ends up in prison and has to escape and prove his innocence. The Japanese story in the manual specifies that White Bomber is a minor for some reason. There's this new $sign power-up for bonus points, but weren't we trying to prove that we didn't steal money? Why are we picking up money here that doesn't belong to us? The music is a pretty laid-back version of that one extension of the main theme from TG16. We switch off between that track and a new rendition of Black Bomber's castle music. Picking up a power-up changes the music again to the theme from the NES game that was used for invincibility in the TG16 game, though it has a new extension here. There are no bosses at the end of areas, though we get our bonus stages back, together with the music we'd expect. And occasionally another Bomberman will run across the stage. Catch him for an extra life. The enemies are all ones we've seen before, except for this frog thing here that can turn into a bomb. On our journey, we go through prison, to a forest, to a mountain, to the marshes, to a cave, and back to prison again for the final area. This time with new music. I don't think this music ever appeared again anywhere else. And there's some serious potential to run out of time in these later stages, which kills us instantly. What kind of prison even is this? No guards, just enemy grunts who are in Black Bomber's following? I get that they're in the forest to stop White's escape, but in the prison? At the end we catch Black by going around the other side of the screen and he does his apology thing again. The end. Roll credits. Are we going to put Black in prison for the robbery? Did White manage to clear his name? All of that remains unanswered. Also, if this is hundreds of years in the future, why does the city look like it's in the present day? So many questions, but no answers for now. Battle mode is back, though this time we have battle mode and versus mode. Versus mode is for 2 players, the second being Red Bomber for some reason. We start with some power-ups and it's always up to 5 wins. Battle mode goes up to 3 players, we start with 0 power-ups and we can choose how many wins we need to win the match. Why they split this up into 2 separate modes instead of having it adjustable in one mode is beyond anyone's guess. One more game to talk about from '91. It's Bomber King Scenario 2 for Game Boy. That's right, Bomber King got a sequel. Except for the international releases, they renamed it Blaster Master Jr. in Europe and Blaster Master Boy in North America, thus tying it into the entirely unrelated Blaster Master series. Now for this game, we know for certain Hudson didn't make it, and it wasn't on their official list of Bomberman games either, but it's still begged mentioning here. And poor Bomber King. It really is its own thing, but the games keep getting counted towards other series for some reason. Ah well, I'll keep on with Bomberman. There's still a lot of games to get through, so sit tight.